By very popular demand then, and also Vodafone internet issues, we have Mr. Mick Tully for part 2 of our conversation. Last time we talked about how it feels to be super old doing BJJ, how Carly will always be his first love, how it was getting his BJJ black belt, what his focuses on training are now, and lots of other stuff that we deep dived. You can go and watch part 1 on YouTube and Spotify. As always, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. It supports the podcast. Maybe one day I'll even get monetized, and then Mick can come on again and demonetize me by saying something inappropriate, and YouTube will block me and living the dream. That is the hope. That's the eventual goal, to be monetized and then have Mick Tully demonetize me again.
I'll easily
then I know
do that. Don't worry about
that. Thank you. I appreciate the support. It's good. So, where did we finish? Last time we finished with speaking about you speaking to other people and you creating your own podcast and getting on the WOMA, chatting to Michael Bisping and all that. So let's pick up right off there. Michael Bisping, the legend that is the UFC Hall of Famer. What's the story there, my friend?
I don't know if we went into it. Like, all the days blur into one now, so I don't know. I don't know.
It was a while ago.
It was last week, wasn't it? So
exactly,
the first time I actually met Mike and spoke to him, really. So I've got a friend of mine at the moment. He's in the big house. He never killed anyone, and he got 32 years. So that'll give you an idea what he was. As we're not monetized, I can do this. I just do the Marcellus Wallace line. You know, it's just a bunch of gangsters doing a bunch of gangster shit is what he was up to. And or he was being an entrepreneur, depending. Yeah, isn't that amazing in life, eh? You know,
one man's gangster is another man's entrepreneur.
Exactly right. So anyway, a couple of guys in Coventry. One guy in particular, I can mention him. He's a great guy, Andy. So I won't mention his second name, just out of respect to him. But he was the first guy that I did. My first ever karate lesson was with him. And we trained with a guy called Jim O'Brien. I have to give you the story, first of all, which we can deep dive on this one afterwards, because it opens up a can of worms. I trained there for maybe a month, and it was at Coventry Sports Centre. And there was a brown belt who was the biggest douchebag ever. He's passed away now. And when he was alive, he was a douchebag. And now he's dead. He's a dead douchebag. And he was one of those brown belts that he basically just used to beat the shit out of every white belt that came in. So he was that, identify the 5 guys that shouldn't be in your gym because they're stopping 25 coming training. You know what I mean? And sometimes they're bullies. Sometimes they're lizards. It's, the guy who's using it, that's his personal Tinder, that sort of carry on, right? So anyway, we were training there, myself and Andy, and we were still at school. We were in sixth form, and one day we were just sitting in the common room talking shit, basically just trying to blag women, basically. Like, no incels here, man. As I said, you guys struggling, you young guys struggling to talk to women. Yeah, just get a personality. You know what I mean? It's not hard. It's even someone like me.
You're asking a lot there.
No,
You're asking a lot.
Trust me, I'm gonna set up my own online university. Like, just how to have charisma. First of all, don't be a boring twat. Easy. You know what I mean? Secondly, you haven't got a girlfriend. Make yourself maybe desirable enough to have a girlfriend. It's like, Dan, going off on a tangent here, but you got to remember, this is what you have to remember. Ugly hookers make a living, right? So guess what? For every saucepan, there's a lid. You know what I mean? So these kids weren't getting laid. I'm like, what's the matter with you guys? So anyway, me and Andy were there training, and we were in the common room one day and we're chatting, and one girl said, who'd win in a fight between you two? And I was like, it was obviously me. And Andy was like, no, me. So then we were like, right, okay. So we went around the corner at the end of the school, went around the corner and just duked it out with each other. It was really funny because it was one of those. It was literally the first time ever that I had a fight that. It was basically the first time that I'd had a fight that I actually fought back, because normally I just had the shit kicked out of me. And because it's quite bizarre, because I've thought about this quite a lot recently, I went into it with a proper ADHD mindset, which was, I'm just going to beat him up. There was no emotion in there. There was none of this, this Bruce Lee, you got him in the background there, that real emotional content and all that shit. And it was like, no, I'm just going to try and batter you. Why? Because I said that I could. And long story short, he pulled the beauty on me. He did the Jack Dempsey. He stood on my lead leg, and it was like we were teeing off like a pair of boxers, just like a hockey fight, really. So it was more arms than anything. So we're going like this. I look really fast when I do that. It looks like that time I took DNT, you know, the way that my arms are going. So, yeah, so
blur, man.
So anyway, yeah. So anyway, he stood on my foot, and as I basically, he pushed me over, and I snapped my ankle, and I walked home. Yeah, and I walked home, right? That was a long walk. Trust me, I was a sad sack walking back that day. And, yeah, I didn't see Andy then for years. And then he rang me up and he says, "You're still doing all that martial arts, aren't you?" And I went, yeah. About 30 at this stage, 29, 30, I think, maybe 31. Okay. Yeah, it would have been about 31, actually. And he goes, "I got myself involved." He goes, "You know a bit about that MMA as well, don't you?" And I went, yeah. And I said, "It will be the biggest sport in the world one day." And he was like, "Well, we've just bought in on it." And what he'd done was him, a guy from up north, who I won't mention because he's still around, but he was a proper old school OG. Like, because I knew these guys, that's what got me my inroad in to the MMA world, right? And he rang me and he says, "Yeah, got hooked up with it." And I went, "Yeah, there's a couple of things coming up there, doing like a Big Brother." I said, "There's a Big Brother thing coming up soon." I said, "A guy I met him years and years ago, like, but what you got to remember is at a competition." So I met him at a competition, didn't really chat to him, you know. And I said, "But he's gone over there," and I say he seems to be doing really well. And he goes, "It's not Mikey Bisping, is it?" They used to call him Mikey back in those days. And I said, yeah, it is actually. And he goes, "Oh yeah, he's going to be fighting on one of our shows." So next thing you know, gives me some tickets, go down there, and give you an idea who's fighting on the later show. Neil, our mutual friend Neil McLeod. Neil McLeod fought Scott McVeigh, a guy from a gym called the Dinky Ninjas up in Glasgow. That was the last fight in their trilogy, like best domestic trilogy in the UK ever. They had a great fight. So I met Mike that night, and I said, "So what happened over there?" He goes, "Can't say." And I was like, "So you won it, did you?" And he was like, No, I just can't say. I can't say." And I said, "But you've got a contract there, haven't you?" He went, No, I can't say it. And Ross Pointer had gone over as well. And then, Ross was there. And it was really funny because Mike had to have some subtitles because he's from Clitheroe. Like, whenever I message him, I always go, "How's Clitheroe's finest?" And Mike's he's one of those. I can't really say he was a hero because I'd never looked at him that way. I always admired him as a sportsman. No one was more shocked than me when he actually won, when he actually became light heavyweight champion, because he was always there as just a gatekeeper. He was like, he was basically, if you could get past Mike, you were going to be in the you were ready to get not a shot at the title, but you were ready to go up the ranks a little bit, and then. It was really bizarre because when he actually got there in the end, it was really funny because obviously he had the bit of a gym war, and then they were saying, "So, you know, how did you do?" And he went, "Well, let's put it this way. Unofficially, I'm Bellator's light heavyweight champion of the world," because he bashed Rockhold in the gym. And again with Mike's just always been a really cool guy. Whenever I've seen him at shows, he's always been cool. Then when he opened up his gym, myself and Will went down. I've got to give a shout out to Joe Long. Joe Long, old school karateka, great guy, businessman. He used to run Seni back in the day when Seni was actually a legit show. It was the one. You see, you had that. Or you had and I really like him, Kwok Lim Wan, Gok's brother. He did a show, and it was like, we got they just put Randy Couture on the poster, and then it'd be like, he's not going to be there. And I went there once as a punter to the show, and I walked in there, and the only person I saw was Gok Wan, right? So first of all, I'm from that older generation where, like, nowadays, if you're gay, you get a parade, right? And it's not I don't want to sound like Dave Chappelle here. I'm going to pull a Dave Chappelle beauty out, So years ago, so my generation, if you were gay, trust me, I respect anyone. Like, live your life, man. We fought wars so you can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. If you're a consenting adult and you're happy, more power to your elbow, right? But my generation, there wasn't any parades. Trust me, you weren't getting a Pride Month. You were getting a kicking. You know what I mean? Like that every person that I know who's gay, who's my age, Dan, trust me, like you got kudos to them, because to live their life on their terms, they took a ton of shit, mostly from family and friends, and then out as well.
Yeah.
And like they were just unreal. But as I said, with Gok, you got to give him his due. It was a martial arts show, and he was dressed in a sailor boy suit. Like honestly, he looked like the sort of thing that like a Japanese businessman would have a wank around. You know what I mean? It's like, you know,
look.
Yeah. What are you like? You're dressed like a sailor, mate. What are you doing? And I'm not saying an old school sailor either. So so Joe Long and Paul Alderson used to do the seni, and then Mike came in. He did quite a lot, and then they opened up the gym, and it was really, really funny because we had to go of all places to Woking. So what they did was COVID killed the UFC thing for them because they were going to expand and it was going to be big. And before COVID, they had a lot of guys involved. You know, one of the main guys was a guy who owned 24/7 Fitness and had sold it in America, and he was going all in. And Mike had his place over. I hope I'm getting this correct. He has it over in California. He owns part of a share in it with Cub Swanson, of all people, from the UFC as well. And Mike was like, we're going to expand, and then it didn't. But the mad thing was, wait until you hear this, for timing, I was raging. Because there's a classic, if you get it, you'll find it on YouTube, where we have this really like in-depth conversation about Mike's fight career, you know, where he's going to go in the future. Now he's a businessman and he's a pundit and everything. And then at the last minute I go, and one last question, and it's on the lips of everybody, Mike, and I need to know what you say. And he goes, what is it? I said, Mike, did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? And he just starts howling. We have a right good laugh. And Will's going, this is ace, man. I said, just that on its own as a vignette's going to be wicked. Like, it'll get people to come and watch the interview. Get into the car, driving back. Guess what breaks on the Radio 2 News? Prince Andrew, when he went to Pizza Express in Woking, where I was just leaving, you know, where he didn't sweat that time. And I was like, oh man, if I'd have heard this news half an hour earlier, I'd have
would have got heavy on that one.
I would have dropped Prince Andrew in there. Shout out to Stephen Hope, who's a big friend of Prince Andrew. I don't know if you know Stephen Hope. If you don't know him, follow him on Facebook. Trust me, the guy. Oh, he's a super beta male. He's unreal. I wind him up over the time over it. Like he just hates. I think he just hates being a male. Really, I don't know. He's very, very woke. Yeah, he's a bit of a white knight. Yeah. So I said with Mike, every time I've seen him, he's always been cool. He's one of those guys. He's living the dream out of that whole, out of the MMA business, because it will chew you up and spit you out. I don't know. Some of the guys who are watching might have heard of this guy. If you don't, you should do. He was the first light heavyweight champion of the world in MMA, who was British born. A guy called Leon McGeary. Big shout out to Big Leon, man. He lives over now in Hawaii. I was only speaking to him 2 days ago. Where was it? I think he was over in Bali. But it was like me and him were saying, he's got to get his ankles fused together, his neck's done in. And I'm like, and what are you getting out of the sport now, man? And he went, mate, it's a meat grinder. And that's, we talked about that earlier, mate. That's what's going to come back to haunt us. You know, McGregor's already showing like mad signs. He was always mad anyway. But I think I mentioned before, like BJ Penn doesn't recognise who his mum is. So we only need one Chris Benoit. Like MMA needs one Chris Benoit, and CTE is a real thing. So as I said, like with Bisping, Mike will tell you the shots that guy took, and for him to
he lost his eye.
You got to remember, he was he'll admit now, he used to go in and he'd memorized literally the the site chart, so he knew all of them. So as soon as you go in and have a quick look, and they go, right, okay, I know to go this side here, and he don't.
AEIO.
He knew how to do it. But like, you know, he lives the dream. He's over in America now, and like, you know, as a pundit, he's unreal. It's like I can't say enough good things about him. He's one of those guys that when you see him like with people who are fans, it's like Goddard. That like, yeah, they could start believing their own press, but they don't, because they realise what a privileged position to be able to do what you love. Yeah. So Mike's a cool cat. But there's some real characters in that MMA business, man. You know what I mean? It's unreal. Unreal.
Yeah. You've done some interviews, obviously, for WOMA and for Mick's podcast as well, Mixed Martial Arts, as it was. How did WOMA come about?
No,
the world of martial arts.
This is a great story. So the late, great, lamented Anthony Pillage. Right, so most of the guys who know who Pillage was, right? So Pillage is a great man, you know. It's like, as people, like I only said this literally. I was only in a podcast on Sunday when I first met Pillage. I met him. The first time I ever met him. I actually met him in an Irish club in Coventry, and he was coming out of the rugby thing that he was doing. He was teaching karate. He'd gone and done the Gokan-Ryu thing. And in Coventry, I'm quite well known. So he's in there and he's giving it loads. And it's that classic thing. It's like most big guys don't learn how to fight because most humans are scared of bigger humans. And like I've never got that memo. You know what I mean? I'm like, really? You're a bigger fucking target in my eyes. So anyway, I meet Pillage and he's just giving it big licks about being a rugby player. And I'm like, right, so where's all your mates? And then he says, oh, you do all of that? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well, I do. And I went, Gokan-Ryu karate? And he went, yeah. I said, isn't that like an acronym for kangaroo or something? Some Australian martial art, isn't it? And he was like, yeah. And I went, I saw the kid in Mad Max. He looked pretty, with a boomerang. I said, thought he looked pretty good, but I said, not really. Obviously my good friend John Will's a great martial artist, but Pillage is there anyway. So we start chatting, and then Pillage then opens up his gym. Then he rings me up to go and teach some Muay Thai for him. So I go there, and he's like, teach these guys. I want you to train them like they're going to fight in the ring. And I went, Tony, first thing, you should never teach anyone to fight unless you've had a couple of fights yourself. Otherwise, you're inauthentic. I said, and like people will find, by the time they get to purple belt, they'll leave you because people can smell shit a mile off, right? And he goes, yeah, but that's where the money is. And I went, there's no money in fighting at all. I said, hobbyists, mums, kids, teenagers, and you'll get a couple of young males in it, but if you'll know now that you're into the BJJ, mate, you really want to be in that Lord of the Flies fucking level shit. Like and try. Yeah. Now, mate, when I'm in there training, I'm just doing that. So anyway, Pillage rings me up, go there, and he's got like 60 people on the mat, and these poor sods don't know their left from their right. They're just lovely people who just want to. Some of them want to delude themselves, and some of them just want to work out. So we go the first week. The first week, do it. I do the conditioning at the end. The holding your ankles, lying on the floor, doing the kick upwards, hitting it with the Thai pads, hitting them in the gut. 30 of them. Do that. Right. Okay. Now do sit-ups and hitting them with the Thai pad for the conditioning on the stomach. Do that again. And next week there's 27, 28. We got down in the end. I got like 8 like savages. And I was like, nightmare, I can't do this. So anyway, Pillage is there, and he's started going on about these awards things, right? So I'll tell you right now, I've never ever accepted. I've been inducted into Hall of Fames all over the place, and I've never ever gone to any of them because it's like you want me to go to an awards ceremony and pay for my own meal. Really? And the meal's never that good anyway. So, of course, Pillage, God rest his soul, I'd already started doing the podcasts. And the way I did the podcasts, I started those because my mate, Ant McGinley, who used to be like, he was like, geez, man, he was a big time radio guy down here. So he had a breakfast show on and everything. And he came to interview us when I was training with Lucky Madahar. And then he started training with me. And then he'll admit he had a breakdown. He was training with me at the time. And it was really funny because he was doing all this. I just want to hit pads and stuff. And I went, mate, your life's turning to shit and you want to externalise your rage. I said, no, I'll tell you what you're doing, mate. And what I did was then for like just 2 months, I just wrestled with him and like just made him really frustrated, like beat the shit out of him all the time, but beat him up and then just give him just enough, like the old Japanese way of, you know, when you crack the vase and then what you do is you repair it with a little bit of gold, you know, that's that sort of thing. So one day Ant was in the back of the car with me when I was giving Rick Fay a lift and he turned around and he said, mate, the conversation you guys have just had, that's amazing. If I'd have taped that, we could do a podcast. And I'm like, what's a podcast? And he was telling me, and I said, oh yeah, Joe Rogan, where they're sitting around this is when Rogan was still sitting around the coffee table, you know what I mean, doing it on his iPhone. And I was like, really? And he went, yeah. And all of the mixed martial arts ones I did in person. So this is way, way, way before, not 10 years ago now, 10 years ago. And I did all of them in person. So a lot of them I had to travel down. So while I was traveling down, I was training anyway. I was really, really enjoying it. And about 7 months in, the podcast was going well. But there was no other podcast at the time. Now everyone's got a podcast, right? No disrespect, but you know that, right? So I was number one in iTunes for a little while, believe it or not. And Pillage rang me and he says, oh, you've won an award, Media Man of the Year. And I went, what for? And he goes, for your podcast. And then I turned around to my wife, who's one of the loveliest people on the planet, and is like, she keeps me honest. And she went, so you've been doing this for like 8 months, and you're the Media Man of the Year. And I was like, yeah. And she went, so like basically you're like the Caitlyn Jenner of podcasts. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, Caitlyn Jenner got Woman of the Year and had only been a woman for less than a year. And I was like, yeah, smash the patriarchy. That's how good we are as blokes, yada, yada, yada. So we do all that shit. So anyway, Pillage is there and he goes, you've won the award. And it's up at Lillishall where we're going to have the MKG camp. It's still open if any of you guys want to come up. So anyway, come on, boys and girls. And any specific gender, we don't care, right? So anyway,
indeed.
Hey, we don't care what your pronouns are as long as you're awesome. So anyway, it's at Lillishall, and I said to Pillage, I'll go because I've never been before. I think you were there. I will go, but I'm not going to pay for my own meal. Just on general principle, I won't do that. And he was like, oh well, you know. And I went, no, Tony, if you want me there, great. If you don't, I'm not. I said, it's not that I can't afford it. It's just I'm not going to do it. So anyway, we go up there. I think you remember I went up there and I just fucking Joe Rogan'd it, man. I got up there, did the acceptance speech, all the usual, every bullshit line that I've got going, it's like, and accustomed as I am to public speaking and all this, like, all that bullshit. Yeah. So I dropped all of that. And then Will Henshaw, who I didn't know, but I knew of, Will was up there. And I don't know what even Will was doing there. I think Pillage just talked him into going up, or Steve Rowe might have talked him into it. I can't remember. And he went there and he said, what's a podcast? And I said, it's like a radio show that gets sent to your phone. And he went, wow, is it hard? And I went, no. And he says, you ever done any presenting? And I went, well, it can't be that hard. It's just the same as talking. I said, what the presenting what? And he goes, well, there's something that might come up. That was on the Saturday night. Will gave me his business card. And he said, give me a ring tomorrow or Monday. So I gave him a ring on Monday and he says, how you doing? He goes, yeah, I got something coming up. How flexible are you? And I said, well, mate, I work for myself. So it's my own business. I can do whatever I want. And I should have added, a bit remiss of this, right? When I went up, because I didn't know Will, I actually said to him, I said, you're that guy from Mind Body Kick-Ass Moves, right? And he went, yeah. And I went, right, if you'd have got someone authentic, good looking, actually did martial arts, you'd be on. I said, you're doing the 10th season now. I said, where did you get that fat mess from? And that Brummie who was doing the David Blaine. I said, he was doing that David Blaine shit. I saw him at one stage trying to do that levitation thing. And I was like, what the? what the fuck's this all about, you know? And I say he's walking around with like some sailor, like again, not even the Gokwan, not the Gokwan cool. He was wearing some long shoreman shirt thing on it. Anyway, don't even tell me. That one there, we could talk about Chris Crudelli. I said I've never met him. I like fair play to him. He just blagged his way in, got away with it, but you get caught out, right? So anyway, I said to Will, I said, yeah, you know, and Will says, maybe you might be able to do something. I was like, cool. That was it. Didn't think anything of it. Rang him Monday. And I love Will. Will's a great guy. So we're chatting away. And then Will says, let me get back to you. And then on Wednesday, he says, he rang me up on Wednesday and he says, what are you doing Saturday? And I said, what do you want to do? He says, do you want to come up to Media City and interview Jean Claude Van Damme for me? And I went, what? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, right, okay. And we still have the footage of that, by the way. And trust me, if we ever, I've got some great stories about that, which I just can't share. I can share some of them.
And how much cocaine was he on at that time?
He's out of his mind. Let's put it this way. I actually said, so the guy, I can tell you this bit, right? So there's a company called Olexi Productions, right? So the guy who owns it, a guy called Steve, and Steve's a nice guy, but he's one of these characters that he offers you the earth, and then when you go there, he does that whole trying to not make eye contact with you, because he's made he's done the whole deal, and we were up there for him. So we go up there and we do the red carpet thing, and it's so funny because it's chicken in a basket celebrity. So give you an idea, Lee from Steps, yeah. So it's like not even H from Steps, you know. And as I always say, H from Steps is the second worst Ian Watkins in the UK, right? And if you don't get that joke, there's something wrong with you guys, right? Yeah. That other guy was an absolute rotter. So anyway, so I'm interviewing him, Ray Quinn from my X Factor, big.
All your Big Brother contestants.
I'll tell you what, chicken in a basket celebrities, all of them, you know. It's like, you know, the sort of guys that would open up a fate. You know, like, I'm trying to think who else was there? Heavy D from Storage Wars.
Right.
So there's a couple, like, Nigel Benn was there. He was cool. Steve Collins. Amir Khan. Like Carl Froch, a bit of a sidebar, but I got to tell you this. I interviewed Carl Froch once, and I said, is it true? And like, if you don't get this one, then shame on you, but it's a good one. Not you, I know you'll get this. So I should preempt it with this. So Carl Froch is famous for every time he gets interviewed, he always has to mention his fight with George Groves. And he always says, I fought George Groves in front of 80,000 people at Wembley. He always says that. So when I interviewed him, I turned around and we had to do it. And it was Kurt, go again. Because I was like, did you fight 80,000 people at Wembley in front of George Groves once? And then pretended that I'd messed it up on purpose. But anyway, sorry about that. So, we go up there and I interview all the chicken in their basket celebrities. Then there's a lot of my friends who are actually up there, like Anthony Rushton was up there. He was doing, they were all doing like demonstrations, martial arts. So they're coming up. These guys are all walking onto the red carpet. I'm interviewing them and they're going, oh, Guru Mick, how you doing? And then there's Steve's like, what's all that? And I went, martial arts, I'm kind of a big deal, mate. And he went, really? Because that's my line all the time. You know, that's why I use that time. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of a big deal in martial arts. I said, but like, that's like being rich at Monopoly. I said, it doesn't work in the real world. I said, you know, he goes, yeah, but you're famous. And I went, Peter Sutcliffe's famous. You know, define fame. So anyway, he's saying to me, he's going, oh, you know, Jean Claude's great, man. He's been in for a couple. He got here earlier. And I was like, he what? He said, yeah, he arrived a couple of days earlier than he said he'd do. And I was like, right. He goes, yeah, but he's been really good fun. And I went, right, and you're like paying for all of this, right? And he went, yeah. I said, right. You took him to Man City, I heard. I heard that on the radio. He went, yeah. I said, right, who paid for that? He goes, well, we did. And I went, yeah, he was at the Panacea last night and he ran up an 18 grand bill. And they let him off with it. Because they had Van Damme in there, right? So I was like, well, he's a bit of a wild man. And I said, a mutual friend of mine, who I won't mention, did have him over once to do a seminar. And Van Damme wanted a helicopter from Birmingham Airport to Stourbridge, like give you an idea, man. You can spit to Stourbridge, right? So I went, he's a bit of a washed out celeb. So what's he like? And he went, oh, he's cool. So we do all of the red carpet stuff, and like I'm exhausting it now because there's nobody else I can speak to because I'm like anybody of any worth. I've done it, and I was like, when's Van Damme coming? And then go to Steve, like the guy, and I was like, where's Van Damme? He goes, well, he's been pulled up there for 15 minutes. And me being me, I was like, he's been outside in that blacked out Porsche Cayenne. That's how ADHD I am. I even made a note of the number plate. Yeah, boom, yeah. And I was like, is he gay? And he went, what? And I went, well, unless he's doing that, he's doing lines of coke. I said, yeah. And now he's going to do this. You got an evening with, right? And he was like, yeah. And I went, mate, I've been seeing the sort of people that are coming in here, right? You're in Manchester. It's all guys. I'm really aging myself here when I say this, but they're guys. They look like Paul Calf, the Steve Coogan character, yeah. So they've all got and those little moustaches and that, and all they want is they want a buddy picture with Van Damme. They want to see him do the splits and maybe do the dance from Kickboxer. That's it. So Van Damme turns up. We go to give him, ask him questions. That didn't end up very well, but we have to talk about that another day. So that didn't really work out. Then he stormed off and he went and he was trying to center himself and get together. And Jenny Falconer off the TV, he was doing all that feng shui shit, right? So it was really bizarre because his entourage was really funny because he comes in and he immediately has to go and center himself. And the girl who was interviewing him on stage was Jenny Falconer, who was like she's done a lot of presenting, so breakfast TV and stuff like that. Scottish lady, lovely girl. And we're chatting away backstage, and she said, like, for some unknown reason, she's like convinced that I've done this before. I've got the laminate, access all areas, got 2 cameras, got the boom guy, the whole 9 yards. So she's like thinking I'm super legit. She doesn't realise that I'm just winging all this shit, right? And she was like, oh yeah, I'm just like faking it as I'm going along. And she says, oh, well, I've done my research. And I went, you've done your research on Van Damme? And she went, yeah. I said, should I give you some advice? And she went, what? I said, just keep your hands away from him. And she went, what? I said, he's the sort of guy who's just trying to eat you. And she was like, what? And I went, oh yeah, he's a madman. And she was like, no. I said, look, he's going to be out of his mind. And I said this to her. I said, he's going to be out of his mind of cocaine and he'll be talking some mad. The only way I can explain it for anybody who is outside of the UK, we have this thing called sesh talk, which is basically after 2:30 on a Friday, Saturday or a Sunday night, and you find yourself at somebody's house and you're talking about, who'd win between like the Hulk if he was really angry and Superman, but it has to be Henry Cavill Superman, the jacked Superman. We don't want that Christopher Reeve guy in the wheelchair. We don't want that guy who looks like Stephen Hawking. We want the other guy, right? So anyway, I said it's going to be sesh talk from him. That's it. Literally, he came out, talked a load of shit, got booed off stage. We were filming it for Olexi, and we were being really polite. We were being really, really professional about it. And then I looked at Will and I went, this isn't going to go for their DVD now. This is because I said to him, we might as well just have a laugh now. So then all I did was like a director's commentary, and Van Damme was going mad. And as I said, his entourage was great. So I went back out and I was hanging out with him backstage, and his entourage was amazing because the first person was his first wife, who divorced him. Then he married another 2 times, and then he married her again. So she was his first and 4th wife, right? And this woman is jacked, right? She is like proper, like hashtag muscle mummy. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, man, it's like she's there and she's berating Van Damme and he's like got his head in his hands. And then has to be his agent. And the only way I can explain her is, when you see a really, really gorgeous trans woman, and she has to be a trans woman because they don't make biological women that big and that good looking. You know what I mean? It's like fucking like same height as Yao Ming, but looks like Gal Gadot. You know what I mean? so there, and then there was his little. I want to say he was supposed to be his bodyguard, but he was just like it was really funny because everyone's like, look at how like this guy's really, he's really alert. He was like Van Damme's bodyguard, but you just look at him and go, he just looked like a little French Algerian guy who'd taken shitloads of cocaine all night and was just like paranoid.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't at DEFCON 1. He just thought the world was going to collapse. And then the last guy was some guy that looked like he'd just come out of home base. Like literally, I swear to fuck, he looked like he had a pair of galoshes on him. And do you remember years ago, right? I'm really showing my age here, right? And anybody who's watching this from America will go, I've not got any one of Mick's references now. Guess what? You're really not going to get this one. Do you remember when Britain first had that period where they were all wearing like green waterproof coats? Do you remember this? Yeah. That's what he was wearing. So the guy looked like he was all in for Brexit, or it looked like he was all in for some like, I don't know, flower beds. I don't know. But that was Van Damme's. That was Van Damme's entourage, right? So the whole thing was an absolute disaster. But it was a right good crack. Cause it was a really good bonding session.
It sounds like a laugh.
Because it was a bonding session for me and Will. And then as we were going, they were like, can we have the footage? And I just walked in and went, what? And Will's going, oh, well, Mick. And I went, no. So we got no leverage here, mate. I said, first of all, are you going to pay? And what? And I went, no, we'll keep this. We'll sign any NDA. And like, yeah, but we've got you've got footage of him breaking down backstage and all of that. And I went, yeah, and we're never going to share it. And then it was like, right, you got Schwarzenegger. You got Schwarzenegger coming in like 2 months. Give us 5 minutes with him properly, and we'll do all this monkey work for you as well. And it was and then went, and it was just the same shit again in Birmingham. Yeah, it's one of them. It's like those celebrity evenings are unreal. But through Will, we've had some good stuff. We were really getting traction right before COVID, and then the wheels sort of came off it. And like I'd always wanted to do like a bit of an Anthony Bourdain stroke Idiot Abroad stroke mind body kick ass moves, which is what it was like Will said. He goes, if we'd have got you at the start, Mick, we could have done it. But then some ex-girlfriend had come out of the woodwork with some kiss and tell. Mick Tully has sex with my coffee machine or something. I don't know. You know the sort of mad stories that come out. Yeah. So that's how we're going there. Yeah. So it's good crack.
Have you got plans to bring it back?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is, we're back now doing quite a lot, mostly Zoom. You see, here's the mad thing. So I've thought long and hard about this. You'll know it as well. You can't have a conversation with anybody of any value unless you get a good 60 minutes in. Because up until it's just fluff shit up till that point, right? And then you need to have a connection as well. But the problem is, like, you're going for a very niche market. So it's like everyone's like, "Oh, Joe Rogan's amazing." You go, yeah, right, okay. Show me someone under 25 who listens to Joe Rogan. They don't want that. What they want is sound bites, TikTok, 30 seconds. That's it.
Quick, done, scroll, done.
For the doom scrolling generation, right? And you're not going to have a good conversation. It's like, I'm brutal because the thing is, I will just take over, and you'll just get all that shit that's in here will just come flying out here, and it's like, Mick doesn't have a filter, and I went, yeah, I'm the first person to tell you that, but ask me anything. Yeah, but Mick's like, that's what it's like in real life. Yeah, it's too tiring to try and be somebody else. So, like as I said to Will, there was a couple of things that the travel log thing is mad because I'm really getting to the age where for the older guys watching, they'll remember Judith Chalmers, but I don't really want to take the risk of getting that skin cancer. Like, because look at how brown she was. Like she was that brown. Trust me. I know lesbians that go out and fight for her rights. You know what I mean? That's how brown. Judith Chalmers, I don't know. But then Jane McDonald's sort of stolen it at the moment for me. But like, it's mad because she's just a club singer. So this is the thing. She's a club singer, but she's really, really likable. And she really, really seems to enjoy what she does. And I wasn't a big fan of hers. I'm just not a big fan of that whole Well, I've never been a fan of the View in America, but yeah, because they're harridans. At least with loose women, they're not that bad. But it's that whole thing where it's like, I've said so many times when I did stand-up comedy, I was like, imagine, right? So you go in and you're going to hit, I've got this great idea for a TV show. Women going, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to put it on about 1:30, 2:00, you know, so that like you can get any little jobs that you need to get done around the house, and about 2.5 hours before you have to think about maybe making dinner or not, or or if you're an empowered woman, you don't do it. I said, but why at that time? I said, because it's nothing more satisfying than sitting down at around dinner time when some poor dude is halfway through a shift, and it's just a load of women sitting around. Like the stench of the hormone replacement patches must be a killer in that studio. And they go, oh, aren't men stupid? And you're like, yeah, you're sitting here berating dudes. All of you were like millionairesses because you married well, right? And none of you got discernible talents. You know what I mean? And it like, I don't want to sound like a complete like misogynist, but I'm like, just think about this for a second. Imagine a dude doing that and go, so I've got this great idea for me. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to sit around, we're going to talk some shit, we're going to arm wrestle a bit, we'll get women jumping up and down on a trampoline in a bikini. And you're like, well, what? Yeah, but this is what guys like. And you're like, sorry, it doesn't work like that. So yeah, I really want, fuck me, that was bad. So I really wanted to do the Bourdain thing, and then I had this thing. We were looking at it. We were trying to get this called Six of the Best, and what it was like Scared Beyond Straight. So I'd be like a bit of a Yoda type, Ernest Hemingway type figure, like this wise and sage dude that's going, look, man, I've made a load of mistakes. Like here, let me introduce you to people. So you get kids that were bullied at school, or you get people that are going through a rough time. But the problem is under 16 is a nightmare because of all the drama that goes with that. And then anything over that. And then like I spoke to Will about it, and I'm like, you only need one bad. Like you only need one bad story to come out of that. And because I was looking at it as an empowered thing, and it was called Six of the Best, because I take them to 6 of the best martial artists that I know, and then see the lessons that they get out of it, and you could do the journey. And then in the last episode, Dan, you know the score. We play the Westlife track. You know the bit where they get up off the cocktails bits. When they get all empowered in that.
Everyone stands up together.
Everyone's going and all of that, the wind machine and that. And that didn't do it. So like literally, it would be a travel log. Just but it's like you want to follow me around Benidorm. It's like I'd watch it, but I'm me. You know what I mean? So I'd like to do it. But again, the other one is I'm 56, and it's that whole. I'm really at that age now where which is great, which is where I've got to be careful. Now everyone's got that uncle,
Now you've got to be careful. So now you're being careful.
So that there's a lot of especially like a lot of my American friends have shared it, where they've got the meme where it's got the douchebag coming out and he's got the mullet haircut and he's getting out of a Mustang, and then it's like that, and it's got this really cool rock track behind it, and then it's got when you finally realise you've become that casually racist uncle, right? You know what I mean? And it's like at 56, it's great because it's like, but you can't say that. What can't I say? But you can't say, but you might hurt somebody's feelings. Trust me, one of the reasons why we have quite a few weak people in society at the moment is, they didn't learn the resilience early on. Like Dan, you're a lot younger than me, but everybody, do you remember at school? Do you remember? Did you have Lazy Eye Kid at school? Lazy Eye Kid was great. Lazy Eye Kid was great. You have the Joe 90 spectacles. You'd have the candle, so he'd have the bit of snot coming out of the nose, and you have the patch like that. And it was like, "What's that for?" You go, "Astigmatism, man." Go, "What is that? Not Jesus? Didn't he have that? Where it's going through the hands of that." Go, "No, that's stigmata, mate." And you go, "Oh right, okay." And they went, and now they go, "Oh, we can fix that in day surgery." And you're like, as cool as that is, which is cool, where's all the life lessons you're learning where you're turning up? You've got that mad patch there which 9 times out of 10 was never the same skin colour as your face anyway, right? You had to wear the glasses. You're doing like a bit of a, like if you ordered Mike Bisping from Temu impression like that, having to look around the eye and all of that carry on. Mike says this will fucking kill me. But anyway, yeah, it's like that. You don't build resilience. It's like, and I don't want to, belittle anything, but there was like the shit talking and piss taking was character building. You know what I mean? And now it's like, I don't say that, and I'm like, why not? That. You know, like it is, especially for young men. It's a nightmare because it's, you know, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I've got to give a shout out to my and he is mad, by the way, because I love him and hate him in equal measure. John Hagan. You need to get John on this podcast. John is a great guy. He's really, really funny. Royal Marine Commando, black belt in the Hoist Gracie, really high level Krav Maga guy. Used to train a lot with me at Terry Barnett's when we were all in that Tuesday night club, which was amazing. Big shout out to Terry. Terry is the man, trust me. Get him if you can. I can't even get Terry Barnett to come on my show, right? So anyway, John posted this thing about this TV show that's on at the moment, Adolescents. With Stephen Graham. And what he did is he said, right, okay, he did 15 years in the secure unit. He locked up Venables and Thompson. Right, so he like the worst of the worst, and he was like this hardworking family man, father figure that we're seeing. That's great for BAFTA. He goes, that isn't the real world, and he was like, you know, like for everything that, like I'm certainly not making excuses for like Venables and Thompson, but it's like he said, he goes, their history, like especially that Venables, was unreal. The amount of abuse, and it was like some child psychologist has said. The level of abuse that these kids had after a year old, they're not going to be able to get fixed, and that's that early years thing. So, like the reason I'm saying all of that is we've sort of lost it somewhere along the way, where people have been mollycoddled to the point now that what would have been basically a grazed knee is now like a broken leg. You understand where I'm coming from? And it's mad. It's like martial arts, where classic line. I used to have this with Pillage all the time, where Pillage go, I can guarantee a black belt in 3 years, and I went, how? And he went, well, they just have to show up, and I went, but what's that black belt worth? And then that's that point where you go, you're a businessman, cool. But as I said, that's one of the things. It's like. It is mad, but all of that, I'd love to get it back going again with me and Will. But the problem is, again, how we started and where it is now is completely different, because years ago you'd get developmental money. Nowadays, streaming services don't want that. What they do is they turn around and go, can you give us 6 episodes and we'll buy them off you? And you're like, right, okay, and do we get any residuals on this? Do you get repeat fees on this? No, you don't get any of that. You go, right. So explain what you're going to get. And the only way, like the future now is like guys who are getting monetized, it's like, look at like, it's so funny. I know this is a bit of a sidebar, but Mr.
Beast and
the Beast definitely. And then for our age, so Mr. Beast, as I think I told you, I just came back from Doha where my son lives, and I was staying in the same hotel as Chunks and Abu Flower and all these guys. And I'm like, I watched them and I was like, I don't get any of it. And they go, oh, they're really funny. And I'm like, and they're like, the Sidemen, they're really funny. And I went, Top Gear if you order a bunch of hipsters. That's literally it. Yeah. But like they seem to be making it happen. So I don't know. It's one of them. It's as I was saying to Al Peaseland, we did a seminar there recently, and I got, he was like, Mick, he goes, your pop culture references are like over everyone's head, and I'm like, I don't care. Oh yeah, I'm going, like I'm like fucking Arthur Askey in a gi, you know what I mean? If you don't know who he is, George Formby, half of my stuff is, what about that old Hitler fella, eh? Do you think he'll ever do this? I feel like a bit of a music hall guy, but I'd love to get back to it, but who knows? Will I? I don't know. I don't really care, to tell you the truth. If I could do it, it'd be great, Yeah, yeah, but you got to remember, Dan, I love plastering. I love plastering and love my life. And it's like, yeah, and the other one as well is, Elon Musk can't build the robot yet to do me. Right? Soon.
True.
Hey, man.
Give it
Hey,
time.
have you seen some of that? If you're a warehouse boy doing a piss in a bucket right now, working for Bezos, and you're looking at it and go, and some dude's going to be there, some robot, and all he has to do is piss 4-star into a bucket. He won't even have to do that, will he? He doesn't need to do it. But yeah, they're going to get replaced. That basic, man, I'm going to go down a, man, this is Joe Rogan territory right now, bro. Yeah,
we're going.
That universal basic income is coming, mate. Yeah, 15 to 18% of the population have an IQ of under 85. What do we want? Will you use our electricity? Will you use that? Well, you'll buy our food. Yeah, great. Okay, we'll just give you some money. Yeah, Ponzi scheme, baby. It's all going round. Yeah. So good for. I meant to say to you, bro, because I am conscious of just talking mad shit, right? You said that you had some questions. I'm interested.
Yes, that leads on quite nicely, actually.
Oh, do you see that? That's a good link, right?
It was a good segue there. I like it.
Other beverage.
You drink your Aspartame and
other beverages are available. By the way, I'm only getting paid but the Zionist dollar is where it's at. You know what I'm saying, man.
Mr. Devlin has got the first question, and he says, "Who has been the favourite person that you've interviewed, or the best interview that you've done for WOMA or for mixed martial arts?" Obviously, you interviewed me for mixed martial arts, so we can ignore that one because I know that was your top one.
You.
But other than me,
other than you, and a bit of a sidebar on this one. Do you remember the time we did the interview and we did it in the treatment room at Pillages? And he had the
did indeed.
Massage. He had the old massage couch.
I did not know what the fuck I was walking into at that point, but yeah.
It's always been, from day one, I've always loved you, Dan. I'm trying to think. So let me see. Yeah. Right. So ones that stand out for me, it's quite funny because I was only thinking about this recently. So this is pretty heavy shit, man. I'm telling you now. So, first of all, Paul Smith from Edinburgh. So passed away, had motor neurone disease. He was a giant of a man. I loved him from the minute I met him. He's Wing Chun guy, trained with, he was one of the first guys to get Malmorny over, cross-trained, really, really tough guy. Only problem that he had was he was in Edinburgh. That's Rick Young's city, right? And you can be really good there, but that's a big shadow that Rick casts, yeah? So, like, he always did okay teaching Wing Chun, but again, it's like, yeah, try to sell out anywhere. Like when Madison Square Garden have got Zeppelin playing every night of the week, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So of course, I interviewed Paul actually in my car at my friend Warren Hunt's wedding. Big shout out to Warren, he's a great lad. I was best man at Warren's wedding, and Paul said to me, if you're going to interview me, we've been talking for a few years about doing it. He says, you've got to get me soon because I've just gone and recorded my voice. And I went, what for? And he goes, well, you know, I've got that motor neurone disease, which is around the same time as the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge was going on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And because I'm not really good at dealing with anything serious, I just pretended that wasn't happening. I was like, what are you fucking on about? You're Paul Smith, mate. You're a giant bodybuilder, great shape. The whole thing. He goes, no, trust me. He goes, within a year, I won't be able to talk. And I'm like, you're joking. And then we saw him at the wedding. Al Peasland actually had tears in his eyes because Al said, how has he got so skinny? And then what happened was his left arm wasn't working, but his right arm was still working. And he said, my legs are still working now. He said, but I don't know for how much longer. And he was drinking red wine. I fired a load of red wine into him because red wine, they were saying that had some antioxidants that could actually hold it back. But it's like he said, he goes, he knew it was coming, right? So I interviewed him and I was quite flippant about it, but I still maintain like I still maintained a level of decorum and understanding in the. You can still get it. It's still out there on iTunes. But it was mad because I knew it was going to be one of the last times that I'd ever be able to talk to my friend. And then maybe a year later, his daughter found it by accident and then messaged me on Facebook and was crying because she said, I never thought I'd ever hear my dad's voice ever again. And she said, and you mentioned me and everything. So, yeah, so he was there. So, like, here, as I said, like, trust me, you've stepped into something. I was only going to post this a couple of days ago, but it was because but I didn't want it to be dead maudlin. So you had Paul Smith. Then I interviewed Scott Caldwell, and Scott passed away as well. And then my dear friend Brendan Westwood, I interviewed him literally 10 years ago. It was one of the first ones I ever did for WOMA. And I was one of the only people that knew how bad Brendan was at the time. And that was another one where I was like, right, okay. Then Gavin Mulholland, I interviewed Gavin at Pillages, and Gavin's a force of nature. And then I was speaking to Gavin just when he was literally doing he was having his cancer treatment. And I interviewed him again, and then we did a catch up afterwards. And then it was like Gavin's like, Gavin, you should get him. Like, Gavin's an unbelievable guy. And Gavin turned around and he says, it's very interesting, Mick, the way you're talking. And I went, well, he goes, you don't talk to me the way you used to talk to me anymore. And I was like, and he picked up on it. And it wasn't the fact that it wasn't for the fact that, because he's bounced back unbelievably. But it was, I don't deal well with feelings. And he could tell that, and it was funny because he didn't make it easy, but at the same time, it was one of them. It was very compassionate the way he dealt with it, because I'm not very good with that. Russ Jarmusty is easily one of the best, for the simple reason you're going to talk to a guy thinking you're going to talk about like bouncing in Manchester, and then he explains that his grandfather liberated a concentration camp. And then that's how he met the grandmother. And you're like, shit, how do you get that? So it's quite mad because there's so many, like Bob Breen, just because I just love talking to Bob all the time. Rick Young was unreal. I know it sounds mad, but there's very, very few podcasts that I've done that I haven't really enjoyed. Because the thing is, everybody's got a story. That's what the people can't work this out with. They're like, but why would you want to talk to me? And I'm like, because I think you've got a fascinating story. And the other one as well is, it's a real shame because there's this like I can't believe I'm mentioning this character because he's now a bit of a bad man. But you've seen Sandman, right? The TV show. Right, so the author Neil Gaiman, he did American Gods, he did the Sandman comic. He's one of my favourite artists, one of my favourite writers. Works out now he's Henry Weinstein with a fucking thesaurus, right? But anyway, he's grim man. But in the Sandman comic book, there's this library that exists that has every single person who's ever existed. It's got their life story there as an autobiography. And I just think that's fascinating because so many people go, yeah, but I haven't led a notable life. And you're like, no, I think you have. So yeah, it's funny. As I said, I was on Facebook and I went through a couple of pictures, and I've got pictures. Well, there's one great picture of me, Scott, and Pillage, and I'm the only one alive now. And then there was Graham Wendes, who I don't know if you ever remember Graham. So Graham was in a picture with me and Eddie Quinn. Pillage is in there as well. And it's like, as I said, I've got to mention this, right? Because guys who are watching are going to love this. Everyone's got a funny story about Pillage, but I don't know if I've ever told you this one, Dan. Have I ever told you the story about when me and Pillage went to see Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the musical?
No, right, I don't think so.
Pillage rings me up and he goes, I've got tickets to go and see Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. He goes, I know you like Ruprecht the Monkey Boy, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I love Ruprecht. And he goes, we're going to see it. It's a matinee over in Birmingham. And I went, right, okay. And I said, I'll pick you up. We'll go for a bite to eat. It'll be a right good crack. He said, no problem. I'm picking up Pillage. Pillage, stage 4 at this stage. He, I picked him up and he looked at me and I went, dude, you look like Tom Hanks at the end of Philadelphia. I said, fucking hell, man, you look rotten. And he was hey, he goes, cancer's great for weight loss, isn't it? And we just started laughing about it. Reason I said the Tom Hanks thing, we get to the theatre and he turns around and says, oh, by the way, if anyone asks, and I went, this sounds ominous. What are you going to say? He'd got the tickets from a local hospice and didn't say that. It turned around and said that I had cancer. And I went, dude, I can't have that. This is bad mojo. I can't have any of that. And he goes, well, we got the tickets now. You got to go. So we go there, and then I go down in the intermission. And when I come out of the toilet, there's these 2 old women looking at me, and they're like tutting and going crazy. And Pillage has told them that I'm his husband, that we're a gay couple, that I'm his husband. And because he's ill now, I'm too embarrassed. And the lady's like, well, what's wrong with you? And he said, have you ever seen Philadelphia? He tells these 70-year-old women, right, that he's got AIDS, right? And then they're tutting. And I was like, right, what has he said? Oh, you're his husband. I said, no. He's a friend of mine. That's it. No. And then the mad thing is, Pillage then takes me afterwards and he says, I've got a friend of mine. And we go to, believe it or not, it was only as I was walking in, I went, dude, is this a sex shop? His mate owned a sex shop round the corner from the theatre. And we went in. Yeah, right. And that was it. As I said, that was Pillage got me in. But yeah, like I said, Pillage's one was great. Richard Bastillo. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that'd be good. Yeah.
The mad thing is, there's so many people that, like, I'm showing my age. These guys are passing away now. And Richard was like, why would you want to talk to me? Richard was unreal because he didn't want to talk about martial arts or Bruce Lee. He wanted to talk about motorbikes. Talked about motorbikes, drinking beer. He was just such a cool guy. Yeah, so there's a lot, but I would say Paul Smith, Brendan Westwood, definitely Scott, Gavin, and probably the big wake up call for me, Steve Rowe. Only for the simple reason, I used to read Steve's articles, and then he's a modern master. Steve's legit. But that's it. Yeah, sorry. There's never a short answer with me.
That's all good, my friend. I think we're going to leave it there. That is an hour of gold there. Oh, beautiful.
Right, okay. So, shall I tell you my favourite ever joke?
Yes, please do.
All right, okay. So you have to give me a minute, right? So I have to get myself.
This is the end of the podcast as well, so you need to make sure this is...
Oh, mate, you got to remember, it's like I went to see Johnny Vegas years ago, and Johnny Vegas said when you go out, he goes, no matter how shit the gig is, always go out on New York, and do the high kick in. He goes, people will always remember that, right? So, right?
Buckle in, folks. Buckle up.
Have I ever told you my Dirty Johnny joke?
You have not told me your Dirty Johnny joke.
So Dirty Johnny, right, is this kid, right? And he's at school. And he's one of those kids that, like, nobody likes. The teacher can't even like him as well, right? It's unreal. And the teacher just can't stand him. And one day she's teaching a class. And she was saying, I need you to tell me a story and then tell me the moral of the story. And it was like, right, okay. So first kid comes up, little Jane. And little Jane turns around and she says, well, my dad, he works at the hatchery. Like a lot of people in our village work at the hatchery. And one day on the way back, he was bringing some eggs back for the family. And what he did was, he was on his buggy, driving back like the Amish, yeah? And he's coming back. And guess what happens? The basket falls. Some of the eggs crack. Oh, wow, that's interesting. What's the story? What's the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story is don't put all your eggs into the same basket. Jane, that's a great story. Who next? Tommy puts his hand up. And she went, Tommy, what's your story? Well, my daddy, he also works at the hatchery, like so many of us in the village do, parents do. And one day, he works further on down the assembly line. And he brings back some of his eggs. These are fertilized eggs. And as he comes back, he'd already told my mother that there was 5 chicks. And when he came back, there was only 4 chicks. Wow. What's the moral of that story? Well, the moral of that story is you should never count your chickens before they hatch. Right. And then teacher's looking around and nobody's there. And Dirty Johnny's got his hand up like that. And Dirty Johnny, miss. And the teacher's going, fucking hate that Dirty Johnny, man. I fucking hate him. But yeah, I made this promise that every child should have an education. I fucking hate him. But yeah, okay, Dirty Johnny, what's your story? My story doesn't take place at the hatchery. It doesn't even take place in our village. It takes place a long way from here in a place called Da Nang in Vietnam. And it's my Uncle Terry. And my Uncle Terry, he didn't work at the hatchery. In fact, he hated anyone he worked in the factory at the hatchery. In fact, he just hated all of humanity. He goes, oh, Uncle Terry, he had a terrible attitude towards humanity. And then one day he was sent out on patrol and he was a platoon leader. And he went out and in the middle of the night, his men deserted him. And they deserted him and all they left him with was a pistol, a bandolier of ammunition, and an M16 machine gun, and 2 bottles of Jack Daniels. And the teacher's like, God, wow. He said, and then Uncle Terry woke up. He saw that he'd been deserted, but he felt deserted his whole life. So he got up, and instead of being disappointed, he woke up with a murderous rage. And the first thing he did was he opened up a bottle of Jack Daniels and he dropped it straight down his neck in one. And then he started to plan on what he was going to do. And he was full of just murderous intent. So what he did was he opened up the other bottle, started to drink it. And then he walked into a local village. And he goes, he didn't know if they were Viet Cong or he didn't know if they were MVA. He didn't know. All he knew that he had a pain and a murderous rage in his heart. And he got out his machine gun and he just, like a scythe, in a mowing action. And he killed all the men, all the women, and by God, even the children too, Dan. Yeah? And then when he was finished, he stopped. He felt down in his trousers. And he found out that he'd urinated himself. So then he was ashamed of what he'd done. He had urinated himself while killing all these people. But then on closer inspection, he checked again. And it wasn't urine, Dan, but it was ejaculate. So where he was ashamed, he was now filled with pride. And the teacher's like this going, fuck, Jesus, Dirty Johnny. What's the moral of that story? And Dirty Johnny says, the moral of that story is you don't fuck around with my Uncle Terry when he's been drinking. I have just stolen 5 minutes of your life.
Oh my God, that was a journey.
Isn't it great?
That was a journey.
I love it. That big shout out to Norm MacDonald, man. It's still one of my favourites. When I dropped that one, the first time I ever dropped that one live, I did it over in America. and only one person had ever heard it before. Like Norm Macdonald, the comedian, did it, and of course all the boys were like this going in Minneapolis. We're going, wow, like they're riveted. Yeah, it's like, this is amazing. And then they were like, and like, you think it gets bad when he does the wee wee, but then when you hear the ejaculate and you go, what the fuck? Where's Mick taking me with this? And then you get that, and then you go, God, like, you just wasted how much of my life. Oh, I've got an even better one. I'm gonna do a moth walks into a podiatrist. That'll be the one that I'll do next time for you. That's a great story. But hey,
ready for a part 3.
Now what you got to remember, Dan, is you have to prefix this, right? But here's the mad thing. I was looking forward to all the questions, and it was a Paul Devlin question, and I haven't even interviewed Paul Devlin.
It was a Paul Devlin question.
That's it. But guys, as I said, guys who are watching, thank you so much. Dan, you've always been a diamond, mate. I'm so happy that you're up with Sean Coates doing a bit there, mate. That's going to change.
Yeah, just started.
Sean teaching last night?
No, he's at the Pan Ams at the moment, I think.
Sean's legit, man. Make sure you send my regards. Yeah. He's one of the good guys, man. He's a good guy. But you're doing it all. And will I see you at the MKG, Lilleshall?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll bring my gi.
I'll tell you what, go easy on me, yeah? Go easy on me. But I tell you what, thank you for indulging me with the shit. You know, it's great. And I wish you all the best with everything that's coming up. I'm leaving, by the way, a little bit of advice. Myself and my wife, I don't know if you guys are watching that Jimmy Carr thing that's on at the moment, the comedian thing. No, I did.
Oh yeah, I've watched one.
It's on Netflix.
Just for Bob. Just for Bob.
Mate, it's a great one. It's really, really funny. All right, but take care of yourself, Dan. You're a rock star. And when are you playing your next big gig?
Summer, we've got some festivals going on.
Yeah, man.
Festival vibes.
I like your start.
Selling out. Plasto.
I hope you mean you're selling out the tickets, not selling out. You're not going to start doing covers and that, are you?
I sold out ages ago, mate. We're gone. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, trust me.
I'm a sellout.
Trust me. It's like, well, what price? And I went, mate, I'll sell out for everything.
Exactly.
Right, but I tell you what, I'm actually looking quite good because last time I saw pictures, man. I thought like that guy that robbed Han Solo of money. You remember him, Jabba the Hutt? I saw the picture. I went, Epacto Solo. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, man. I was looking at.
Is the beard coming back? Is the Santa beard coming back?
The thing is, the beard.
I was a fan of the beard.
A lot of people like the beard. It was a bit of a Hemingway sort of tribute act. The only thing is,
I liked it.
It's
confusing feelings.
But, really, trust me, that bear market, it's a big market at the moment. I know all about that. As I said, the reason I got rid of it, I was teaching over in Erdington, and some little kid was annoying me, talking about PlayStations and shit. And I was like, what's he on about? And then the mum was like, oh, he thinks you're Santa Claus. And I went, what? Oh, yeah, we told him that Father Christmas.
There was a bit
Father Christmas teaches you jiu-jitsu. But like, the thing is, even though I'm 56, I only feel about 26. So like that's the other one as well. Oh yeah. You know, I identify. I'm a bit like Will Smith's kid. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I don't identify as what I am. That's a good one. I imagine being able to pull that one. I've thought about this, and we will go on this one. I would love to identify as I say it. You know, like in the Pee Wee division. You know, just in jiu-jitsu and go, but respect me here, but I actually only feel like 11 and just go in there and just murder all those kids. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Gold.
Anyway, I'll see you later. I'll tell you what, the hand, is that doing the DMT thing for you, is it?
It is, yeah. I quite like it.
Tell you
it's
what,
good.
Man, don't do acid, kids. Whoa.
We've definitely gone Joe Rogan now.
See you in a bit. Peace and love, man.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye. Thank you.